What's up, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Goal Line Dynasty. Today, Tyler and I are taking a look at some buy low wide receivers that you should 1000% be acquiring this offseason in your Dynasty leagues. But before we get into the video, Tyler, how we doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's hard to find, defects in the community values because the community is usually pretty sharp. But I think we picked out a handful of good guys to go target, and I think they can fit multiple different rosters too. So I think we're set up for a useful video here.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'll just jump right into my first one here, and the first one's going to be DK Metcalf. Currently wide receiver 14 in keep trade cut, and according to the trade calculator, he is worth a top 3 pick in Superflex leagues. Now, I don't necessarily know if I would say that that's buying low. Right. I think if you pay market value for DK Metcalf, you'll 1000% get him. But I think that you can offer some like low ball / discounted offers on DK Metcalf and kind of see where it takes you. Because for some reason, like every content creator and every person that plays Dynasty football that I follow on Twitter has just been completely down on DK Metcalf for the last couple of weeks, and I'm really not quite sure why. You look at DK Metcalf's numbers. He's been a top 16 wide receiver in PPR leagues for 3 years in a row. You also take into account Geno Smith could potentially be the truth, right? Like he threw for 4,200 yards last year. Everyone was down on that Seattle offense because Geno was going to take over. He came in. They did not miss a beat transitioning from Russell Wilson to Geno Smith. I know that there's a big worry that Seattle's offense is going to be more spread out because they have JSN. But in my opinion, I think getting JSN is going to help DK Metcalf's value. Overall, he might miss out on, 10 to 15 targets this year, but he had 141 targets last year. If he goes down to 125, I'm still buying him as, a low-end wide receiver one in a lot of leagues. JSN is going to kind of clog up the middle of the field, and I think it's going to open up a lot of real estate for DK Metcalf, especially in the red zone, which, speaking of the red zone, last year he only had 6 touchdowns on 141 targets. But in the previous 2 years, he had 129 in each of those years, and he had 12 touchdowns and 10 touchdowns. So as they say, positive touchdown regression is coming. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to see him hit, double-digit touchdowns again this upcoming year. So I think he's going to rebound. He's going to catapult himself back into, the top 10 Dynasty wide receiver discussion. And I think looking back at it this time in a few months, you'll be really happy that you bought low on DK Metcalf.
Yeah, I think I like DK at like a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2 value. I think he's a premium wide receiver 2. I wouldn't be confident going into the season with him as my wide receiver 1 on my roster in many cases. But in terms of talent, like him and AJ Brown, we were talking at this time last year, we didn't know, like we had them neck and neck at like wide receiver 12 to 13, or 10, 11, something like that this time last year. So going back to that, like the talent's there. I don't think the situation really can improve for him drastically by the end of his career, or at least, well, he's got significant time left, but I definitely like the price that he's going for. My first guy is going to be an aging asset, sucks to say, but Amari Cooper is 29 years old, and he just finished as like the wide receiver 10 in fantasy last year, but he's currently ranked as the wide receiver 37. Ironically, he is ranked he's pretty much equivalent to like the 112 on the trade market. So I mean, if you just won your championship, I think Amari Cooper is a guy to go after. I think that Deshaun Watson is going to improve after a full off season of work and having a full season with Amari Cooper to get started and everything. You can also buy him for guys like Christian Kirk. He's about equivalent to Christian Kirk. I think that that would be a fair swap and one that I'd be more comfortable with, knowing that Calvin Ridley is going there to Jacksonville this year. You could swap him for Marquise Brown, Zach Charbonnet, Miles Sanders. I think any of those would be fair, and I would be comfortable getting Amari Cooper. I think wide receiver 37 is like egregious for a guy who just finished, top 10, and has been pretty good for most of his career. I understand that he's inconsistent, but on a long-term basis, I mean, he finishes as a top 15 wide receiver most of his career. Most years out of his career, he did, especially when he was healthy. So I'm taking Amari Cooper here and expecting him to, put another 2 or 3 years production for me.
Yeah, and Amari Cooper, I mean, dude, I feel like he's never been fairly valued in any year of Dynasty, right? Like when he first comes onto the scene, was it 8 years ago now, 9 years ago, something ridiculous like that. I just feel like in fantasy in general, Amari Cooper has never had the respect that he deserves. I know he's 29. Like you said, he is an aging asset, but there's no world, unless he gets hurt, there's no world where he doesn't hit 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns this year, right? And if you can get that for the cost of the wide receiver, was it 37 or 38 you said on keep trade cut? Like, that's dumb. That's dumb. And you should 1,000% do it. If you're like firmly in a rebuild, yeah, Amari Cooper might not be for you. But even if you're a mid-range contender, I mean, you could get this guy for pretty damn cheap for what he is. So I do really like that call on Amari Cooper. But my second guy here, a very aging asset in his young 30s, Keenan Allen. This is strictly for our contending teams. If you're rebuilding, you can ignore this, right? But if you're a contending team, Keenan Allen has to be one of the guys that you're looking at. He is the wide receiver 44 on keep trade cut. He's worth about the 203 or the 204 in a 1-for-1 trade. If I can trade the 16th overall pick on my contending team for Keenan Allen, I'm doing that 10 out of 10 times. He's kind of sort of an afterthought at the moment in the community, I feel like, because people are so focused on what's going to happen, with QJ there. People are focused as how they're going to be using Mike Williams. People are looking at Austin Eckler. Keenan Allen is the old guy of the group. He's an oldie but a goodie, as they say, right? He's been top 14 in PPR or better every single year since 2017. And I know last year he was like wide receiver 40 something, but if you look at points per game, he was the wide receiver 12. He did only play 10 games last year, but that kind of helps us get him at a discount this off season, right? So if I'm contending and I can get a guy like Keenan Allen, I mean, he is an every week top 15 guy, right? Like he's nice and consistent, but he's also going to have the occasional 2 touchdown week where he's just blowing the doors off of the place. So I do really like that. And then just having really any piece of the Chargers offense, I'm going to be pretty pumped about. Like Justin Herbert is like top 3 right now in like Vegas betting odds to lead the league in passing attempts and passing yards in 2023. So if I can get any of those wide receivers, especially if I can get the cheapest and arguably the best one, I'm going to do that every time on a contending roster. So Keenan Allen, great buy low candidate.
Yeah, I like Keenan Allen. He had a really strong end of the year last year, and I mean he's going to demand targets. I think he's about to fade out, but you know what you're getting for him, and like you said, 16th overall pick. I mean, if you get, 8 games out of the 203 this year, whoever you picked, of 15 to 20 points that Keenan Allen can get you, and Kellen Moore's new offense, then I definitely really like it. My next guy, to kind of break up the trend a little bit, because I feel like if I went with my third guy, then we'd kind of be falling into a trend. I'm going to go with Jahan Dotson here. He's currently ranked as a wide receiver 22, right like the 108, 107 about on keep trade cut. I think that's kind of fair, but I'm not taking 21 receivers in the league over him. He's about equivalent to like Quentin Johnston. I think Quentin Johnston hasn't proved anything yet. While his upside is probably a lot higher than Jahan Dotson's, I'm still feeling very, very, very comfortable swapping those guys out. Especially if I'm drafting one of them to be my flex, like I have Jahan Dotson, who I think I'm comfortable putting up, 14 to 17 points a game when he's healthy. He showed a lot last year. I think he's criminally undervalued compared to what the other guys in the league did and what kind of quarterback play Jahan Dotson had. Like, it cannot get much worse. I know Sam Howell isn't really anything to be too excited about, but I think Jahan Dotson improved it last year with god-awful quarterback play regardless. So if he's even any improvement, or if he gets any kind of improvement down the line in his career, I think this is more than worth the value, and he can fit on any roster. Like, I would take Jahan Dotson on my contending rosters because he was productive last year, and I think he's going to continue to be, because I think that he's better. I think he's better than Terry McLaurin. I think he's the best weapon on that offense, and I think he was heavily relied on pretty early on last year. So compared to what the other rookies, the love that the other rookies from last year are getting, in terms of these, dynasty values, Jahan Dotson is criminally undervalued at wide receiver 22.
So I agree with you and I disagree with you. I agree with you saying that he's a buy low and I'd like him on just about any team because I do like Jahan Dotson a lot. But where I would disagree with you is saying that he's the best weapon on that team because my next buy low is Terry McLaurin. So funny. It's just funny that you say that, right? I think Terry McLaurin and what you just said is alluding to why Terry McLaurin is a buy low for me right now because I feel like, the reception perception, right? I know a lot of people know what that is. And basically that came out a few weeks ago showing Jahan Dotson was an absolute monster last year, right? And we all knew this. Jahan Dotson was awesome last year, but now it's making Terry become kind of more and more of an afterthought. Terry McLaurin, in my opinion, he doesn't have the same upside as a guy like Amari Cooper does, but he is criminally undervalued year after year like Amari Cooper is. The thing with Terry McLaurin, he's only 27 years old. People act like he's about to be out of the league. He's only 27 years old. He still has plenty of gas left in the tank. We're going to be talking about Terry McLaurin for the next 5 or 6 years at least. His last 3 seasons, his smallest yardage total was 1,050 yards. And we know that over the last 3 years, Terry McLaurin has not had any sort of legitimate quarterback play whatsoever in Washington. Bring in Sam Howell in 2023. I've gone on the record on this channel a lot to say that I do believe in Sam Howell. And that is a reason why I am buying low on Jahan Dotson and I am buying low on Terry McLaurin because I think this Washington passing attack is going to have its best year in the last 4 or 5 years. I really genuinely think that Sam Howell is going to revamp this offense. My other thing about Terry McLaurin and why I like him so much and why I'm buying him low is he's consistent as all hell, but he can have boom weeks, right? Like no one's surprised when Terry has a 2-touchdown week. But Terry never goes out there and loses you a week, right? So in 2022, he had 12 or more points in 11 of his 17 games, and he only had less than 8 points twice the entire season, right? So he's not losing you any games. He's not winning you many games either, but he's always a good contributor to that. He's the perfect guy that I'd want in my wide receiver 3 spot. Maybe if I'm desperate in my wide receiver 2 spot, but at the wide receiver 28 on keep trade cut, and he's only worth about the 110 in Superflex leagues. He's definitely a guy that I'm going out and I'm sending a lot of offers on, unless I'm like really deep in a rebuild and I'm like a bottom 2 team. I think there's a lot of scenarios where even if I'm like bottom 8 or bottom 9, I'm still going after Terry in a lot of spots.
Yeah, I think it like when you consider what you're drafting at the 110, like these late first round picks and early second round picks, like you're hoping to God that you're going to get a running back that can give you 15 points a game for an 8 game stretch, a 9-10 game stretch, in a year. I think you have a much better bet of having that this year, next year, the year after with guys like the guys that we've mentioned, Terry McLaurin, the Amari Cooper, pretty much everyone that we've gone over so far, and probably the guys who we're going to go into. I don't buy the hype on many of the rookie running backs. So when it comes to these 110 to early second round picks, like give me the aging assets that I know are going to give me points because that's really what I'm drafting them for. And I'm not going to get much better out of the rookie running backs anyways compared to the aging vet receivers. So now here, another guy who's an old soul would have been drafted in the first round 6 years ago if we knew what his career was going to be. But DeAndre Hopkins, he I think is a criminal buy low right now. Wide receiver 47. He had a fine year last year when he came back from suspension, did exactly what you would have wanted him to do, and I think that no matter where he is, he's elite. He's played with bad quarterbacks before. He's been a great wide receiver, and there's no signs to say that he's fallen off for any reason. I'm not scared of any landing spot. He could land in the XFL, and I would still have him higher than my wide receiver 47. So go out and get DeAndre Hopkins because he is cheap, and there's really no risk with where he goes, because he has played with bottom tier quarterbacks for a lot of his career, other than a short stint with Deshaun Watson for a short time. He's played with trash, so I'm not scared of him playing with more trash. Give me D-Hop all day.
Yeah, Hopkins is a guy that I think you got to be kicking the tires on if you're a contender. And I mean, you could spin the roulette wheel, right? If he lands in Tennessee, if he lands in New England, I know those are two popular landing spots right now. You might be able to get him a little bit cheaper. But I mean, dude, what happens if he goes out and he does sign with the Bills, or he does sign with the Chiefs, or he does sign with, I don't know, just anyone that's not Tennessee or New England, right? His value is going to go up overnight, like immediately. So I think I would be fine with paying the current price on DeAndre Hopkins if he does end up in Tennessee or New England, and you have 30 other chances to get him in a better landing spot. Like, there's not, with the exception of the Cardinals, there's not a single team that's like firmly off the board for D-Hop right now. So I'm fine with spinning that roulette wheel and buying him low. So I do really love that call.
Yeah, so really quick, just to go into the keep trade cut, like trade values, it says he's equal to the 203 in terms of rookie picks, or guys like Elijah Moore, Desmond Ridder, Kadarius Toney, James Cook. Like, dude, even in a super flex league, I would rather start DeAndre Hopkins in my super flex spot than Desmond Ridder, like in most scenarios. So I'm taking him over all of those trades, all those pieces, and especially the 203.
Yeah, no, I will always support buying DeAndre Hopkins because he's an absolute stud. But last guy of our video here today, I'm going to go and talk about Chris Godwin, wide receiver 33 in the consensus, and worth about the 110 or the 111. So worth just a little bit less than Terry McLaurin. Chris Godwin is getting the Baker Mayfield discount, right? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Tampa Bay no longer has Tom Brady. They've moved on to Baker Mayfield. I really don't think it matters for Chris Godwin. The reason why is because he is a PPR machine. I don't care who's throwing him the ball. I don't care if it's Baker Mayfield. I don't care if it's Kyle Trask. I was about to say I don't care if they bring back Jameis Winston, but I actually would really like it if they brought back Jameis Winston for fantasy purposes. But, I mean, Tampa Bay is going to suck this year, man. And even when Tampa Bay hasn't sucked over the last couple of years, Chris Godwin is a league leader in targets, right? Like, when he's on the field, he sees 10-plus targets almost every single game. And that's not going to change just because Baker Mayfield's throwing the ball. They don't have an excellent rushing attack, right? Rashad White and Sean Tucker, you're telling me that is going to be, you know, the league-shaking rushing attack for Tampa Bay? No. Like, this team, they're going to be down in games. They're going to be forced to throw the ball a lot. And Chris Godwin is going to see those 10-plus targets a game. I mean, that's exactly what he was seeing, right, once he was fully healthy. Or I should say from week 6 on, he saw 7-plus targets in every single week. And 7 of those weeks, between week 6 and week 18, he did have double-digit targets, right? So, and granted, yeah, I know that's Tom Brady throwing the ball. Good targets are better than bad targets, but a target's still a target. Chris Godwin's going to get a hell of a lot of them. The other thing with Godwin is he's also only 27 years old, right? Like, he's kind of in the same scenario as Terry McLaurin. Once receivers hit 27, people start to fade them in dynasty football, but they shouldn't, because statistics will show you that typically between the ages of 26 and 29, wide receivers are in their prime in the NFL. So Chris Godwin is in the middle of his prime. You also got Mike Evans on the other side. Obviously, you know, we don't want him taking targets away from Chris Godwin, but it's a great tandem, right? Like, it works. We want Chris Godwin to be the quote-unquote wide receiver too in that offense. So absolutely nothing wrong with that. The other thing with Chris Godwin, I know he doesn't have a big touchdown upside, but who cares? If he's catching these 7 or 8 balls a game, that makes up for the lack of touchdowns. And the single biggest reason why I'm buying Chris Godwin, yes, if I'm a contender, I can use him. But even if I'm rebuilding, if I can get away with sending an early second-round pick, right? Like, market value is the 110, but if I can get away with sending a second-round pick for Chris Godwin in a rebuild, I probably will, because Tampa Bay is going to suck this year, right? And there's almost no scenario that Baker Mayfield is their starting quarterback next year. There's almost no scenario where it's Kyle Trask. It's more likely that we see Caleb Williams or Drake May under center for week 1 of 2024 in Tampa than with Baker or Kyle Trask, right? So Chris Godwin this time next year, if they get a quarterback upgrade, people are going to realize that shit, we've severely missed out on this guy. So I do really like buying him low right now in the offseason.
Yeah, you've always been a Chris Godwin guy, and I think I do like, it's about the 110 keep trade cut says, again, you're going after a running back, or maybe if somebody ahead of you makes a big mistake, you're getting some value. That Zay Flowers is going to fall to you, but that's like the best you can really hope for in terms of this class. So I do like Chris Godwin this year. I mean, last year he was valued about like the 106. I think it was more like Chris Godwin for Jameson Williams type swap. But here this year, it's Chris Godwin for, who gives a shit? Zach Charbonnet, Condre Miller. Like, I'll take Chris Godwin.
Yeah, no, Godwin he should be fine this year. Like I said, I know going from Tom Brady to Baker Mayfield is far from ideal, but just do yourself a favor. Like, if you're watching this, go look at Chris Godwin's stats from literally week 4 to the rest of the season. Like, double-digit points every single week. Dude's a stud. You just buy the dip on Chris Godwin. But anyway, that's going to do it for us here on Goal Line Dynasty. We just want to shout out all of our subscribers really quick. We've grown a lot over the last, 5 or 6 weeks. Tyler and I, we started this channel actually a year ago today. Worked our tails off last off season, and then kind of life hit and we stopped producing content during the football season. Don't worry, we will be back, and we will be there this entire football season. But we brought it back to life a few months ago, and the videos are being received, for the most part, pretty well by you guys. The subscribers are going up, the likes are going up, the views are going up. So I just want to shout out everyone who is watching these videos, and we do really hope that you are getting some value out of them.
Yeah, man, this will be our 66th video. So I hope that doesn't spell bad luck, but 66 in a year, not too bad.
Yeah, but for myself, for Tyler, and for Goal Line Dynasty, you hit that subscribe button if you haven't, and we will see you next time.